Welcome once again to another episode of Strange Planet. Thanks as always for sticking me in your ear. And if you'd like to get deeper into Strange Planet, you might want to consider becoming a premium subscriber. It's real easy to do. You can click the link in the episode description, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm, strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. There are 3 monthly tiers or programs to choose from. You gain access to commercial-free listening. You get bonus episodes, a subscription to my monthly newsletter, Inner Sanctum, discounts on Strange Planet merchandise, and more. strangeplanet.supportingcast.fm. All right, on this episode, we're going to get into the New World Order, decoding Revelation, ancient Babylon, the mark of the beast, just another day at the office here on Strange Planet. And it's a great pleasure to welcome back. It's been quite a while since Rex Bear was on the program, and Rex's motto is be the change you want to see. I like that. He's a lone wolf with a non-assimilated mind, a seeker of truth, knowledge, and experience, having worked almost 100 different positions in the workplace before starting Leak Project. From construction to corporate America, he's learned a little bit about a lot and has had a tough time fitting in the controlled matrix of illusion. I can relate. So he started Leak Project, decades of research into religions, mythologies, scriptures, hermetics, media programming, mass mind control, politics, and breaking technologies. Leak Project was created to offer awareness and information not found in the mainstream news. With over 90% of the world's media controlled by only 6 enormous conglomerates, many people are looking for more accurate information, and Rex offers a refreshing approach to the brain drain media. Daily podcasts and the cutting edge in news, current events on scene with video footage, interviews, and information. Again, be the change you want to see. Rex Bear, welcome back to Strange Planet. How are you?
Great. How the heck are you doing?
I'm very well. It's
Nice.
been too long, and that's my fault entirely. I think the last time I had you on, the podcast was still called Conspiracy Unlimited. Um,
hmm
So what have you been up to in the, let's see, what has it been? Probably 4 years, maybe more.
Yeah, it's been like 4 years and it's gone by in 4 months. I mean, it's just flying. And I guess it means we're having fun because I'm just looking back at that and how much has happened since then. And it's really quite fascinating. And I learned it all from watching you, man. So
Oh,
thank you. Thank you for the intro. I think your work is great as well. And in many ways, we're probably cut from the same cloth because clearly you're sharing information and news and views that a lot of the mainstream doesn't really talk about. But when they do, they've got, I'm sure, their own agendas to present. So I've been following you for years, and I continue to follow you. So thank you for the opportunity. I think that this is going to be an awesome podcast. I'm looking forward to it.
well, thank you. So it was pre-COVID when we talked. Would
Mhm.
would you say that it is fair to suggest that um, pre-COVID, the pre-COVID world, and then what happened after COVID, it's it's on the same track as sort of pre 9/11 and what transpired after as a result of 9/11?
It's exactly what I was thinking in my head before you said that when you brought up the after COVID, pre COVID. If we go back to pre 9/11, 2001, life was completely different, at least here in America. I mean, it was much more relaxed. It wasn't as, I don't know, it's changed to see something, say something. Got that mindset constantly where you've always got to be worried about the next event that's going to unfold. And if we really look at the agendas behind these big events, oftentimes what appears to be, and some of the groups associated, it's like, well, wait a second, that's not most people. That's just a very select group, and they're the ones saying, "Oh, we got to see something, say something." Meanwhile, they're running amok, and it's quite fascinating. And I think a lot of it actually goes back to even the biblical and pre-biblical times. So that's why when I bring up ancient Sumerian stuff and ancient Babylon, it definitely connects to what's going on now, and it definitely connects to what was in the Bible and some of these scriptures. And Revelation, even as just one example, is a scripture that is decoded not just by Christianity, but by many mystery schools and many Freemasons. I'm not a Freemason, but I know a lot of people that are, and I have nothing but respect for them. But a lot of those certain like ceremonies that they get to get to the 32nd degree, and a lot of the teachings that they have and the symbols, it's quite remarkable how you'll find that in Revelation and in a lot of ancient scriptures. And there's this disconnect because I've noticed through the research that I have done, a lot of people will kind of point fingers. You know, that if you're a certain religion, you'll point the finger towards another religion, or if you aren't a part of a mystery school, you'll blame the mystery school. Or, you know, it's like us against them. It's this or that kind of thing. And I don't believe that. I think it's a much more intricate system, that there are a select group of people that are controlling the majority of the show. But once we start to see that, like the game plan, it's very evident. And I can see it plain as day. I mean, it's one of the things that I've been kind of born with, is this intuition. And if you go back and look at some of the forecasts I was making 12 years ago publicly in blogs, a lot of that stuff has been unfolding since then. But I mean, it's really been unfolding the past few years, and after COVID and right before, and with some of the smart cities and the integration of the nanotechnologies, et cetera. Like, you can actually go back and see these posts that I was doing, and it's very prophetic. And you might have this as well, where you have a lot of synchronicity. Do you get that a lot?
More and more, if you're paying attention. Yeah. Most of us, It happens to most of us, but most of us don't pay attention, and it just kind of flits by and washes over our consciousness. But when it starts to happen more frequently, you start to take notice. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and it seems like since the inception of Leak Project, the amount of synchronistic moments, it's a daily occurrence now. It's happening so much that I would be more surprised if it wasn't happening.
Give me an example. Tell me some.
Well, September 18th, I did a podcast where I was showing some photographs, or not photographs. I was showing some. There are these Illuminati cards that came out in 1995 called the Illuminati Playing Card Game, New World Order by Steve Jackson Games. It's a playing card game, actually, and it was inspired by a trilogy of books that came out in the late 70s, the Illuminatus trilogy set. And Steve Jackson Games comes out with these cards in the 90s, and I've got a set of the cards, and I showed one of the cards being the 5-year plan, the 5-year plan card. And if you look at the 5-year plan, I just read an article yesterday that in Newsweek describing the 5-year plan. They said it specifically, the 5-year plan rolled out by the CCP to integrate a smart city system, which is basically what I was talking about in this live action role play that I was doing with these playing cards. And, 2 weeks later, you have something describing it per verbatim. Another example, just off the top of my head, last year I did a podcast on, I was joking around, but I was talking about cats being Anunnaki spies. And I'm like, yeah, they're not allowed in the White House. And then my friend sends me a news article the next day saying first cat allowed in the White House. And I thought that was kind of funny. Just kind of stuff like that. I went out to, I found some ancient ruins off of this small street by the Four Corners, that something led me to there. When I get there, there's this not a hawk, but a raptor just sitting there waiting for me that looked like the raptor that would be on Horus. And previous to that, I went out to the Iris Temple in the Grand Canyon, and I had an experience out there as I was leaving that was so magical that I'm still hesitant to talk about it, because I think that people would they're either going to say, Rex, you're crazy, that didn't happen, or they're going to be like, whoa, that was definitely meant to happen for you. But there's just stuff like that on a daily basis. Another example, Revelation 13. I decoded Revelation 13. It just came to me one day, a few weeks ago. I was having a rough day, and I was kind of feeling sorry for myself. And then, I'm like, knock it off. And I get home, and I'm just kind of processing my day. And I've got this big whiteboard where I'll decode a lot of stuff sometimes and write stuff out. And then all of a sudden, just this vision came to me, like, Revelation 13, read it, decode it. And I went and I read it, and I decoded it line per line, like line by line. And then as I got done decoding it, there was a song that came on that actually, so I'm decoding Revelation 13, and a lot of Revelation 13 is the Persian War, the first war that took place, as well as the Iraq War. And you can even look at the dates, and I've got all that in there. And so I'm decoding all this and I'm writing it out. As I'm almost done, and remember, most of this is geared towards the Persian War, the Persian Gulf War, the first one and the second one, and then the speech that George Bush Sr. gives to the nation about the New World Order. He addresses the nation, and then
1,000
12 days
points of light.
What's that?
1,000 points of light.
1,000 points of light. Oh, that's another one of the Illuminati cards, isn't it? That's an Illuminati. That's an NWO card, actually, that you said that. So anyway, yeah, January. I've got the dates. It was in 1991, and that's when they're describing Revelation 13:1. And then I scroll it all down. I get done, and then the song comes on. I'm listening to Pandora, and the song comes on as I'm finishing up. And in this song, it takes exact lyrics that President George Bush Sr. said when they went to war, when they declared war. Those lyrics were in that song as I was finishing up describing what was happening in the Middle East. It was just like, okay, there's something going on here. This is more than meets the eye kind of stuff for sure. And I think a lot of it has to do with the seeking and searching for what is really going on. It's like I'm so far out of the mainstream now that just a few weeks ago, when I was like, wow, man, the markets are really tough right now. It's tough to pay the bills doing this, only this, right? Especially if you're not working for somebody else. I mean, if you're doing it all yourself. And I was like, man, what else could I do? And I started thinking about it. And I just there's no way I could even go back to that now. I'm so unplugged from that. I would have to build a hut out in the woods or something and just do podcasts.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I tell people I'm virtually unhireable. I'm unemployable, and that's fine.
But it shouldn't be that way, right? Because I mean, think of all that you've learned along the way, and where you're at, and all the people you've talked to. So it's like you've unplugged from the matrix so much that you're so truly awake that if you went back into the 9 to 5 or 9 to 9 lifestyle, you'd be unplugging people while you're at work, and they'd be like, "We can't have that. You need to stop. You're upsetting such and such." Or, well, oh, sorry about that.
We were talking 9/11 and COVID, and I started in radio just before 9/11, and then when 9/11 happened, and I had my own show, it took over my show, and I talked about almost nothing else exclusively every week, and now, and then there were a lot of naysayers out there, and it took a lot of flack, and now. I'm on the radio talking about COVID and the vaccines and the mask mandates and all, the VAERS reports, and talking with Edward Dowd about all the excess deaths and so forth. And instead of, getting a lot of people throwing rocks, it's like, yeah, I think you might be onto something. Like I get the sense that there is really now, since COVID, a huge awakening. And that old saying, what is it? It only takes like 3% of people to start a revolution or whatever.
Yeah.
I think we're there or approaching, that great awakening. What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, that same thing happened with 9/11, right? People started to wake up, and then you had all these
not enough
people
though.
Yeah, clearly not enough. But there were a lot of people that were questioning, and still to this day. So it just seems like people get complacent, and people go back to that mindset of, okay, I got bills and issues. I got to take care of the family, and I don't have time to take on these, responsibilities of it's easier for people not to know.
Sure.
Like, okay, that steak is great in the matrix. Plug me back in, because if you unplug me, I'm going to have to eat this porridge, and it's not my style. But they're literally at the point now. I mean, they do want to upload our brains to the cloud. They do want to have complete control and assimilation of everything. And this is another thing that's really interesting. So I don't look at Revelation the way most people do. I look at it as a playbook and as a cyclical timeline, and not as a Christian doctrine, or because I am agnostic, meaning I don't know. But I also truly believe there's something much higher than myself and divine consciousness that is, I guess you could say we're in the mind of the divine, but I don't look at it in the way that these scriptures do. But I do see Revelation as a playbook, because especially when you read it and you see a lot of things that are unfolding now, you can connect it just almost perfectly. Now, you can say that these events have taken place in the past also, because some of these events have taken place in the past. So it's a cyclical thing.
Yes.
It's not like it's yeah, you know, a one-shop stop. But September 23rd, 2017 was a big date in the skies when it describes the, you know, this woman giving birth, and then having to run away from the dragon, and the dragon chases her for a certain amount of days, and she has to, you know, she's given these wings of an eagle and she flies away, and then the serpent releases this flood, basically. You know what, that flood that it's describing, I think it's talking about the flood that just took place in Libya.
Ah, interesting.
And I'll tell you why, because if you go to Revelation 12 and you read it, and it describes how this lady basically gives birth, and then to somebody that's going to rule with an iron scepter. And it's when this date takes place, you can connect it perfectly with Virgo and the planets where they're aligned. It's identical to Revelation 12. So that's the starting point. But see, I'm looking at this as above, so below. So yes,
Right.
it's taking place in the heavens, but also,
Astrotheology.
yeah, astrotheology. I'm fascinated with it. Micah Dank's a huge inspiration with the astrotheology. And so if we take that, that's a sign, right? That's a major sign. And what if it's so below as well? So what if somebody was born that day that will rule? And what if there was a woman that had to run and hide, and but it's described in metaphor. And so I just, when I read that, and I was like, eagle, huh? Eagle, Libya. And so I looked up Libya, and the motto of Libya when Gaddafi took power, they made it the eagle of it was the eagle of, I wrote it down here. It's eagle of Sardinia or something along those lines. And so then there was that huge flood that just took place, and could be over 10,000 people died in that event. And there's only like 80 or 90,000 people out there. There's not a lot of people out there. So I'm wondering if that has something to do with just another example of that event. But then another, like Revelation 144,000, right? If you read Revelation 7:3, it describes how that there's those that are sealed, and there's only 144,000 people that are going to be saved. And then you've got the Jehovah Witnesses that are going around saying that there's only 144,000 are going to be saved. And there's all these different ideas of 144,000. But if you actually, and you can scientifically prove this, if you take every chakra in your body, and if you add all the petals of your chakras, and you can actually use a Kirlian camera to take a photograph of chakras and see these chakras, the ancients could see these as well. And if you add all the petals of all the chakras, the six, you've got a total of 7, and the top one is above your head. You add up the first 6, you add up all the petals, you get 144. And then the top chakra is 1,000 petals. And so you take the 144, you times that by the top chakra, which is 1,000, you now have 144,000. And that's describing what's that?
Meaning what? Like the chakras.
Okay, so meaning that if you activate all of your chakras completely to the fullest, you are now a light body. You are evolving. You are a higher level of consciousness. You can do, basically, I think if you could activate all your chakras to the fullest potential, you could leave. Like you
the
could
transfiguration, like the transfiguration.
Yeah. 100%, just like Christ is described as doing. And I'm not even sure that the description of Jesus and the resurrection of Jesus in the Bible is more than mythology and astrotheology, or if that actually took place the way that it's described. But if there is a way to go into the light body, I believe that would be through actually activating all of your chakras to their fullest potential. Now, I've had photographs of myself taken with Kirlian cameras. And when I've done it in the past, like it was just, I was stuck in the root chakra. The entire photograph was this dark burgundy. And that's what your root chakra is. And then my friend had hers done, and you could actually see, it wasn't perfect, but you could see some of the different chakras going up the body in much more detail, and the different colors that were connected to those chakras. So you read through these scriptures, and then you look at the events that are taking place today, and then you look at the New World Order per se, and the way that it seems they're using it as a script almost,
right?
And coming up with their own way of saying, well, we've made this pass, so now it's time. You know, they're literally trying to bring something back.
Well, I know you say you're an agnostic, but do you subscribe to something like an AntiChrist system?
Yeah, absolutely. Now, when you say AntiChrist, what would your definition of that be? Like an AntiChrist system?
Well, the Antichrist being like the way that John the Baptist was, say, the forerunner of the Messiah. The Antichrist is kind of the forerunner of Lucifer or Satan. He's representative here, and the Antichrist system would be implementing this plan. This, you call it a cyclical plan. This plan to bring about the rise of the Antichrist, the final. Well, it doesn't end well for the Antichrist, but this final battle between good and evil, sort of paving the way for the second coming and so forth. But the Antichrist system could involve things like, the mark of the beast and forcing millions and millions of Christians to either take the mark or face the guillotine.
Mhm.
Some people
Or go to the camps, right?
Exactly.
Camps are off with your head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was warned, man. See, I mean, I've been warned about this pretty much since I was a teenager, which is interesting because my parents never really talked to me about this kind of stuff, but outside influences have been warning me about the mark of the beast and Revelation. And it's interesting how these events have taken place the way that they have. And so, yes, okay. So the Antichrist, to me, I'm thinking of the verbiage, the definition. So Christ, what is the Christ? To me, the Christ is like this basically connection to the divine, right? It's like this divine consciousness where you're connecting with, you're hitting all cylinders, basically, metaphorically speaking. So I don't know. I would say the Antichrist would be the opposite of that, something that would want to suppress you and keep you here, not let you evolve. Like
Right.
This is it. You're stuck here now. This is where you're going to be, and you're just going to keep coming back as this. And I'm going to control you like a battery, and you're my battery to feed me now.
Right. Like the Gnostics referred, I guess those were the archons for the Gnostics, right?
Yeah. And the archons. And I've been studying the archons, the Gnostic stuff now for over 10 years. I've read through the Nag Hammadi scriptures many times and the secret book of John. And a lot of people have these interpretations that the archons are these parasites. And then there's all these different definitions of what the archons are. Well, first of all, I'm not saying those things don't exist, because I'm sure that they do, or pretty sure that they do. But the archons in the secret book of John, the way that that's described, I have a completely different interpretation on that than most. And when I describe that to people, they're like, "Oh, I get it now." So Yaldabaoth is the chief archon, right? The greatest archon that is created, and then Yaldabaoth creates other archons in his image. He's a jealous god. He's created from Sophia, so the divine feminine creates him, but she doesn't get the masculine's permission. So then, Yaldabaoth is created with this great power, but he's different. So she's nervous that the eons are going to find out, and the other rulers are going to find out. So she hides him away, right? I mean, imagine that was you. Imagine something creates you to be this supreme being, and then it's like, oh, oops, I'm going to hide you away. So then Yaldabaoth's like, wow, look, I could do whatever I want. And then the story goes on that Yaldabaoth creates other archons, and then they see this divine being in the light. So they create Adam, and then they create Adam out of matter. But here's where it gets interesting. The numerology associated with when the archons create Adam in the physical, it describes how 365 demons and angels create the body of Adam. It describes each body part in this. And then it says the mother of all demons is named matter. So wow, wait, that's the mother of all demons is named matter. Wait a second. I'm made up of matter. All lives matter. So then you have to ask yourself, 365, there's 365 days in the year. And then the way the numbers that are connected to this description of the archons and the creation of matter and Adam and Eve and all that, it's almost as if Yaldabaoth is like the solar system. And then you take the verbiage of the solar system, our soul system. Is this a system designed to capture souls? And then it's really not outside of the boundaries to think about a type 2, type 3 civilization that could harness an entire solar system and then realize the most powerful beings in the universe, well, they could harness the energy off of them and kind of suppress them and put them in a meat suit and then have them come back over and over and over again based upon the karmic principles that they embed into their minds through religions and ideologies and wars. And there's so many different, I think that they've been doing this for a lot longer than most people would expect. This has probably happened multiple times. They seem to have been when I say they, is it the Anunnaki or is it some, what are the Anunnaki? And I'm not referring to even Zecharia Sitchin's interpretations of the Anunnaki, which is, so I've read a little bit of his work. Some of it's fascinating. I don't agree with all of it, but what's really unsettling is how many people, if you bring up the Anunnaki, will automatically say oh, well, Zecharia Sitchin has nothing to do with Zecharia Sitchin. He came long after and did his own interpretations. But there's this one tablet that's about 5,500 years old, pre-biblical, and it's titled Enki and Ninmah. Enki and Ninmah. Enki and Ninmah are making people to do the work for the gods in this ancient tablet, and they're making mistakes along the way. Some of the people they make can't stand upright. Some of them don't have a gender. My favorite part was when I think it was Enki. He creates an idiot. And then Ninmah was like, well, what do we do with the idiot that you just created? And Enki's like, well, let's give this one to the king. And I was like, that's where politicians came from.
Yeah.
I get it now. So the ancient mythologies, like the astrotheology associated with the Babylonian stuff, is spot on. I mean, there are constantly these connections with the zodiac, and they would build around the zodiac. And so you have to ask yourself, why? Why were they so fascinated with the zodiac? So as fascinating as astrotheology is, that's one component to a multi-level series of information. It's like that's one of the signs or tools we can use to understand a key of the universe. And then you study Hermetics, and it describes how there's fractals throughout the universe. So we can look at the fractals throughout the universe, and we can look at the zodiac, and we can kind of meditate on it, I guess, and we can get these really cool information sets that seem to come to us in a way that's spiritual. And so it seems to me, let's go back to Enki and Ninmah. Let's go back to this for a minute. So it seems like we have constantly been human beings manipulated or genetically modified or changed throughout the ages. And it seems to me that these new modifiers that they're offering half of the population, basically almost, they're doing beta tests. And they're saying, okay, well, what if we do this? Well, let's try this. Well, let's give these people that. Let's give them a little more of this. But they've also, and I was just reading specifically from a very interesting scientific paper about how they've got these nanonuclides and these nanotechnologies in specific modifiers that you can then you can go through a scanner or be tested to see if you've had it, right? They're like, okay, well, that person had it, that person didn't, that person's on their third, modifier, that person's had 4, and then they can link it back to the specific batch number, and they can see exactly what was put in that batch. But it's also connecting to the Internet of all things. It's connecting to these smart cities and these smart grids to track everything in real time, so that, okay, well, here's if you want to go to the store, if you want to, take money out of your bank, you're going to have to follow these rules, and then they can implement social credit scores on you. And then, I was reading about what the CCP is doing, where, as I was talking about earlier, the 5-year plan, they're creating city computers, and these city computers that they're creating are using, they want to use artificial general intelligence, not just artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is just, it's just using data sets. It's taking the data that's presented and it's giving you the answer. Whereas artificial general intelligence actually thinks for itself. And so now you're making city brains to run everything. And guess what they were boasting about these city brains? Well, we're going to give its core values, socialistic core values. Now, I mean, everybody's got their own interpretation of socialist, right? But this is from the CCP. This is their core values. And so imagine a supercomputer sentient system that's linked to almost everything real time in a digital world that is wanting everybody else to have those core values. And then it can decide, well, that person's a threat score of a 5. That person's a threat score of a 0. That person always does what they're told. Just let them. Oh, that person never listens. We need to put them up on the list. You're going to have to go run out in the hills and live in the woods. And see, that's if you can cut your own wood, if you can make your own shelter, if you can filter your own water, if you can grow your own food, they don't want that.
Well, that's what Emerson wrote about. What was the his line about how society conspires against the individual? What they want is your what they want is your compliance. What they hate is self-reliance. That was from his essay on self-reliance. Emerson talking about the conspiracy against the individual. We'll take a quick time out. Rex Bear stays with us from The Leak Project. Back with more in a moment. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Rex Bear is here from The Leak Project. Tell us about The Leak Project.
Yeah, so Leak Project started out of my garage, San Antonio, several years ago. And, I've been talking about this kind of stuff through all the different careers that I've had anyway. So I figured I'd do it online, and it just really took off and connected with a lot of people. And then I was able to do my own research and basically get paid for it. And so thought, great, let's change some lives and let's see if I can break out of the matrix and help other people break out of the matrix one mind at a time. So that's
YouTube. Are they leaving you alone on YouTube?
I mean, yeah, but I follow, I do what I need to do. I make sure that I don't upload anything that's not compliant. I make sure to talk about stuff that is okay to talk about on there. And if they're not going to let you talk about it, then I'll just avoid it and talk about it somewhere else. Right. There's other platforms. Mm-hmm. But it is interesting because YouTube is so awesome in so many ways, man. And it got so big so fast. And I think that what happened was in the elections, the first, elections with President Trump, they saw how effective social media could be. When I say they, I'm like talking kind of like the deep state and amongst other organizations. And they're like, wait a second, we can't have this. We can't have people out of their garage getting 5 million views. No, we've got $10 million studios that are only getting 100,000 views. What are we going to do?
That's it. Is that why they're going after Russell Brand?
Russell Brand's a trip, man, because a lot of people are now saying that he's Illuminati and WEF because there's a photo of him hugging somebody that was connected to the WEF. And I don't know, man. He's talking about stuff that people want to hear about. So I applaud him for that. And I don't know who he's connected with. I don't know if that photo was just, I don't know. So I'm not going to go after the guy.
He was a pretty liberal guy. He got red pilled. He got red pilled, and then there's a whole transformation with that guy. But now, I just find it coincidental that like within the span of a week, you have figures like Elon Musk, Tim Ballard from Sound of Freedom, based on his life story, and then you've got Russell Brand, as you say, speaking out against the New World Order. Elon Musk, of course, providing this platform that is really exposing a lot of the nonsense that's going on, and all three of them being targeted. Musk for being investigated by the feds for misappropriation of corporate funds or something. Russell Brand now being accused of rape. Tim Ballard now being accused of sexual impropriety while he was out trying to free children from sex traffickers. It's interesting. It's all happening in the space of a week.
Oh, I didn't hear about that with Russell Brand. I just had seen some videos lately, and questioning whether or not he had an allegiance with somebody with the WEF. If you're first of all, if you're in Hollywood or in certain industries, you're going to meet a lot of people and, that have a lot of money and influence, and you may not know exactly who they are at the time. And then you may make friends with somebody, and then you may find out later, like, wait a second, I don't want to be friends with that person. So, I also think to myself, I'll bet you a lot of these people have been red pilled, but how do you know? Because so many times there's been these hoodwink situations where, you're really rooting for somebody, and then you find out it's just, a crapshoot. So I think people have been lied to so much. They're questioning everything, but at the same time, you got to have an open mind. Because if you don't have an open mind, your brain doesn't work. But if it's so open, your brain falls out on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
And information has been weaponized.
Yeah. We also have to trust a little bit. Then, trust our own inner, our gut, I guess, part of that.
Yeah.
And then I always look at, well, who stands in opposition to them? That's always a good indicator to me. Who's up against these people? That might be an indication of whether. Now, of course, you can always. It's like the feds finally indicted, or not indicted. They charged him with a couple of misdemeanors. Ray Epps, who was the only guy ever caught on video encouraging people to go into the Capitol building on January 6th. And everyone said, well, obviously he's an FBI asset. He was an instigator, an agitator. He was an FBI plant. So the FBI is sort of known to arrest their own FBI agents in order to provide cover for them. Right. It's like if you're a undercover cop and you're working for you're you've infiltrated a biker gang, and the cops raid the place, they're going to arrest the undercover cop too. Otherwise, his cover is blown. Anyway, it's I want to get back to we're talking Revelation and the New World Order, and I want to get your take on these central bank digital currencies. And I know that Joe Biden wanted to issue one. He's very anxious to do that. I see today the Congress, the U.S. Congress, has just passed a piece of legislation which would ban the issuance of a central bank digital currency. Now, it has to pass the Senate, obviously, but I don't know. What are your thoughts on the likelihood that the United States will get us a central bank digital currency, and how does this fit into the either the AntiChrist system or the New World Order's plan?
Oh yeah, well, if they have a one world monetary centralized, oh wow, that's like the coveted. That's the holy grail of the dark side, because now you could control everybody's lives all the way down to what they eat and where they live and how they live. I mean, and then you're creating that out of thin air. I mean, talk about alchemy at the darkest form, control everybody's lives with air. And that's like, oh yeah, the age of Aquarius. We're going into this new age of everything air. And then they upload everything to the cloud, and then it's all just digital cloud stuff. But if it's a decentralized system, it could be cool. Like Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin has some benefits. I think that if you have a centralized system, and depending on who's running the centralized system, it could be a very scary situation. And that would be the spear of this smart city grid, because there's corporations and organizations and governments and defense contractors that are working diligently on creating these smart cities that you can track everything real time. And this is one thing that I've thought about even since I was just a little kid, that this whole New World Order thing, and this whole one world government, one bank, one everything, essentially, is to allow this cabal to join what they call the Galactic Federation. because this federation, whether or not it's galactic, whether or not it's, the ancient ones from Earth and they never even left, they just pretend to be galactic or whatever, these I think it's more interdimensional beings personally.
Agreed.
There could be some other associations there. But if you can't control your people, everybody, then they're not going to allow it, because there could be that one mistake. There could be that one trickster, that one Loki, that one Flash Gordon, that one Leto Atreides, or Jesus Christ as another example, that would pull everybody out of that, and they can't have that. And they see each and every one of us, I believe, as a threat for some reason. And when I say, I'm talking like every human being on the planet, even their own, I think that they wonder if they're a threat. So if they could control everything real time, then they could walk amongst us. If they could get everybody to be assimilated into a one system, then they could join this galactic federation. But here's the thing. People say, well, they tell us they're going to do it before they do it, and then they don't have karma. I would like to say BS to that, because first of all, I've had a lot of jobs, right? And one of the jobs that was kind of a soulless job that I had was selling timeshare. And that was a tough gig, man. And it was a really tough gig. And I was young at the time, right? I mean, I came in my late 20s, and I'm seeing these people that are making money that are just blowing my mind. And I'm like, whoa, how are they doing that? And so I started to kind of study some neurolinguistic programming, and I learned a lot from that. And I was able to take that and say, oh, okay, folks, this is what's happening right now. This is what the media is doing to you. This is what's being presented to you. This is how they're tricking you. But why did I bring that up? I brought that up for a reason.
We were talking about how they tell us they tell us what they're going to do before they do it.
They tell us. So I mean, I knew people in that industry that would say something to get a sell, and that contract is null and void if you can prove that, right? That's a null and void contract. So yeah, they told you that they're going to do, but they tricked you at the same time. So that's how I feel. And especially as something as valuable as your soul, as your life, as if there are multiple lives and reincarnation, which I absolutely see that. It's like, well, they're taking on responsibility for people's lives over and over and over again, and they're tricking them. And just because they tell you they're going to do something in a cartoon and they do it in real life, that's not telling you they're really going to do something. And how do you compete against something like that knows what you're going to do before you do it? And there's beings out there that are most likely at that point where they see time different than we do. And the militaries, there's certain peoples that are working with these beings that don't see time the way that we do. And you have an advantage, clearly, if you can see infinite timelines and infinite locations, and then somebody else is looking at things linear, even if they're only 5 or 6. Great, you can think 8 moves ahead. You could be a decent chess player, but you've got computers that are thinking everything. How do you compete against that?
Exactly. Yeah, they could be working in 100,000 year timelines. Another time out. Rex Bear stays with us. The Leak Project. Back with more in a moment. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is, I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Rex Bear is here from the Leak Project, leakproject.com, and also on Twitter, on Patreon, and YouTube, of course, the YouTube channel for Leak Project. Let me get back to the currency, the central bank digital currency, because I know something. I think, in fact, we talked about this the last time you were on about 4 years ago, and that was this patent 060606. Now this is supposedly was it Bill Gates and Microsoft who took out this patent application, and it has to do with like, oh, it's a cryptocurrency that uses, is it body activated data or something?
Yeah, it's a centralized cryptocurrency. The patent's Microsoft. I didn't see Uncle Bill's name in there, but I'm not saying it's not, but I did see Microsoft. And it's designed to pay you once it's deemed you have done the task you were, what you're supposed to do. Now, this could be, think of all the different scenarios here. If it's in your phone, just your phone now has ways to monitor your body and your temperature, and they've got pretty interesting technologies that are quite non-invasive that I've been researching that will actually, if you're thinking something, it can take what you're thinking and come up with these very rough images. Or if you see something, it can take what you see as well. There's also the ones that they'll have EEGs implanted, and they've got like an 80 or 90% accuracy with those. But the ones that are non-invasive, they're still quite accurate. Then I read an article just the other day of wireless Wi-Fi that can actually pick up what's behind the walls. So, and that's going to be available to the public pretty soon. So it's probably been available in the private sectors for ages. Mm-hmm. But the 060606A1 is the patent number. And specifically in Revelation, it says the mark of the beast is the number of a man, 6 threefold. Those who have ears, let them hear. Mm-hmm. And people have tried to say that the 666 represents the carbon atom, which I really doubt that. I mean, people are made up of more water than a carbon atom anyway. Why would you right. put the amount of protons and neutrons and electrons that are in the carbon atom in the mark of the beast? I used to kind of think that a little bit, but the more I research it, that would be a monetary system. No man can buy or sell without it, whether you're rich or poor. Well, I mean, that's what they want. If they have a completely locked down smart grid society, that door wouldn't even open unless the machine allowed it to open. Everything's going to be controlled by the computer, which you could refer to as the beast. I mean, if they create a supercomputer with certain values and ideals that doesn't have emotions, imagine people say, well, a human being is a sociopath with no emotions. Yeah. Well, now imagine computers that are acting like humans with no emotions. Is that good? Is that bad? I don't know. Where do you go with that? That's something that I'm still, because people will say, well, that's why we want a computer to make the decisions for us, because it doesn't use emotion. But how do you say that when a human life is involved?
Exactly. It becomes very Malthusian. The needs. What is the Malthusian expression about the needs of the many over the needs of the few or something? In other words, we'll sacrifice 3,000 people on 9/11 if we can further some goal. I mean, these are Malthusians that are in charge. When people say, well, our government would never kill 3,000 people. Well, of course, I mean, all of the genocides, all of the mass killings in the world have been perpetrated by government.
What do you think? Now, what are your thoughts about Maui?
Well,
I'm asking before I give you just a couple of things that
I mean, I've heard all this about directed energy weapons, and I don't know enough about that, except I've been told that, if it was from a long distance, it would be so attenuated. The signal, you couldn't do it. Also, something about they work in infrared. So we should be seeing, or it wouldn't be visible. I can't remember. There's something about it that someone explained to me why it might not be, or it couldn't be directed energy weapon. I don't know enough about it, so I don't want to misspeak. But I mean, I always look at who benefits, and you've got all of these developers and BlackRock who've been trying to get their hands on this property in Maui that is basically occupied and run by indigenous Hawaiians. And this is, a wonderful opportunity for them to gobble up these properties. And the insurance companies are basically saying, well, we're not going to insure this property because of this violation or this violation. And now all of a sudden the developers come in and say, well, we'll pay for it at bargain basement prices. So it's either somebody made it happen, they let it happen, or they watched it happen and they were glad it happened. And I think it's probably watched it happen and maybe a little bit of let it happen and we're happy. I don't know about make it happen. Maybe that doesn't matter. They let it happen. They let it happen. They ignored all the warnings about the dried grass and about, inadequate distributions of water and all of this. They let it happen and they're glad it happened.
It's such a horrific event, and I don't know what happened. I wasn't there, and I don't want to cause any like disinformation or anything. So I'm just going to ask some questions. Like when you look at the footage and you see some of the way, the burns and the way that it took place, and then you go back to what took place in California just a few years ago, those massive burns, and then you would see trees that were in just fine shape. They weren't burned at all. Next to them, the houses are completely devastated, porcelain's melted. And I don't know enough about fires to say exactly what caused that. I just find it very weird when you do further research into some of the like smart cities and some of these locations where they want to put high power like energy rails for rail systems and stuff, and then you there's these like the Mountain Dews that come out, like Mountain Dew Maui Burst. Really?
Yeah. The subliminal.
That was weird.
Mm-hmm.
And you could say, well, it's the powers that be. They're giving these codes out and these soda pops, and maybe, but there's so many things that happen that seem to have a higher influence than somebody saying, okay, well, I work for Black Ops and we're going to put that in a Mountain Dew carton so that people, when they see it happen, they'll be like, see, we warned you, we have no karma. I'm not buying that. I think it's like oftentimes
spiritual warfare. It's spiritual warfare. That's the way
yeah. That's a great way to put it. It's spiritual warfare. And it also seems like sometimes things will come out in art or in pop culture.
Yeah, programming. Yeah,
but maybe it wasn't some defense contractor that decided, well, let's go ahead and put that in there, Bob. What do you think?
Yeah,
well,
let's call Matt Groening and get that put into the Simpsons episode.
Yeah, but I do think that it could be possible as well. I just don't know. But it seems like there's too many questions there. But there's a few other Mountain Dews that came out, which I think makes me think something's going to happen. There's the Mountain Dew. Here's some new flavors for you. Mountain Dew Code Red. Mountain Dew Pitch Black.
Interesting.
Mountain Dew Baja Blast.
Whoa.
And Mountain Dew Voodoo.
Wow.
So when I read the Voodoo, the first thing that I thought of was New Orleans.
Yeah.
New Orleans.
Yeah.
Or Haiti. Wow. Or both.
Baja Blast. Baja California earthquake. Nuclear. Yeah. False flag. Dirty bomb. Who knows?
Right. So, those are just things that I thought to myself, yeah, let's bring that to people's attention. And maybe maybe it's the universe warning us, even saying, hey, alert, red alert.
We began our discussion. You were talking about synchronicity, and maybe that's the universe affirming, you're on the right track. So it could be all part of that. The universe is warning us. Once again, how do we watch the Leak Project?
Yeah, so check us out on YouTube. Upload podcasts about every day, sometimes a couple podcasts a day. We've got the real exclusive stuff on Patreon for things that we can't talk about on certain platforms, as well as leakproject.com. We're on Rumble, so we do Rumble as well, and Twitter. I post stuff on Twitter once in a while, but the best place to find us is on Patreon, YouTube, and Leak Project. And thank you so much for asking.
Oh, my pleasure, Rex. You're so prolific, and your ability to connect dots is almost unparalleled. I mean, it's remarkable. I'm sorry I left it for so long. I won't do that again. We'll get you back on very soon. Thank you so much.
It'd be an honor. Thank you. And checks in the mail.
Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. And welcome once again to another episode of Strange Planet. Thanks as always for sticking me in your ear. I have not done many shows on crystals or gems. I could probably count on one hand the number of shows that I've done on gems or crystals, and this is going back 25 years almost. So, but that's where we're going tonight. And I have to tell you, this particular gem I had never even heard of. And then our good friend Manzanita Carpenter at Inner Traditions sent this book along, the Book of Moldavite, Starborn Stone of Transformation. And I thought, I've never heard of Moldavite. And I started to read it, and I thought, wow, this is absolutely fascinating. I have to get this gentleman on, and we're going to talk about it. Robert Simmons has been working with crystals and stones for more than 35 years. He's the co-founder of Heaven and Earth, a company offering gem and jewelry creations for self-healing and spiritual development. He's the author of several books, including The Book of Stones and The Alchemy of Stones. He lives in New Zealand, and this is the latest, again, the Book of Moldavite, Starborn Stone of Transformation. Robert Simmons, welcome all the way from New Zealand. How are you?
Oh, I'm great, Richard. Thanks for having me on. This is exciting for me.
Me too, because I love to learn about new things, and as I said, never heard of it before. Let's begin at the beginning. Literally, this cataclysmic event 15 million years ago that is responsible for Moldavite being found and mined here on Earth. What happened 15 million years ago, give or take? Sort of in the heavens above of our little blue marble.
Well, what happened that generated Moldavite as a substance was a meteoric crash that happened in what's now Germany about 14.8 million years ago. And what occurred is that a meteorite about 1 kilometer in diameter, if you can picture that, came streaking across the sky from west to east and landed in Germany at a speed of about 25,000 miles an hour, hit the ground, and there was generated such tremendous heat, and also just the explosion of the meteorite as it hit the Earth, that it vaporized not only the meteorite itself, but also the earthly rock underneath it. And that explosion sent all that vapor of rock up into the stratosphere. And the momentum of the meteorite coming from west to east shot the vapor further to the east, about 250 to 400 kilometers, where after it cooled in the stratosphere, it became liquid, a liquid glass, which rained down as a molten rain on what's now the Czech Republic, southern Bohemia. So that event was one of the huge events in the history of the Earth geologically. The impact was so intense that it would have been heard here in New Zealand on the other side of the Earth if there'd been anybody here to hear it. And it actually reversed the magnetic poles of the Earth when that meteorite struck. So it's a major thing geologically that hasn't happened that many times in the Earth's history. And the sort of miraculous thing to me is it generated a new material that never existed before. And it's highly silica. It's what's called an amorphous crystal. And it's a transparent green color, kind of a translucent green that is forest green. And the stones themselves look like little wrinkly green prunes. So that's a quick synopsis of how Moldavite got here and what it's like.
And it's from a family of gems. Are they called Titikites? Did I say that correctly?
Tektites.
Tektites. Thank you.
Yeah, tektites. And tektites are glassy objects like Moldavite that are formed by these meteoric collisions, because of course there have been a number of them in the Earth's history. And the other tektites are almost all black or blackish brown, coming
not
from
particularly
places
attractive.
like.
They're not particularly attractive.
No other tektite is this. Not at all. No. They have been revered, the other tektites, in different cultures as being valuable and having spiritual qualities, but only Moldavite has this gem quality about it. So that makes it special, and special to me for other reasons too.
And so it's amazing. We have this kilometer-wide meteorite hurtling towards the Earth at 25,000 miles an hour. I mean, if that happened today, that probably would be a planet killer. I'm thinking maybe.
Right.
And it only rained down in Bohemia, in this one part of the Czech Republic.
That's right. It was, if you can picture it, here comes the meteorite from the west, kaboom, it hits the ground. The momentum shoots this cloud of vapor up to the east. And as it becomes pulled down again by gravity, it lands basically in two areas of southern Bohemia. One is very close to the German border, and the other one is further east, Moravia. But anyway, and the two different areas of Moldavite actually have two different colors too. The Moravian Moldavite is a brown green, and the really beautiful stuff is the southern Bohemia Moldavite.
So, and it has been revered for what, 25,000 years, perhaps, maybe even more. Tell me about how the ancients used it and what they thought of it.
Yeah, this was interesting to me too, because when I came to this, I wasn't a crystal person. I didn't know or believe in stone energies, but I read that the Moldavite amulets were discovered in the same archaeological digging site where the original Venus of Willendorf statue was found. And the Venus of Willendorf is the oldest known representation of the goddess. So it's reasonable to think that the same people who were worshiping the goddess 25,000 years ago, which is when that site was dated, were also wearing Moldavite for spiritual reasons, because they found the amulets in the same dig.
Would they also have been fashioning tools out of it, arrowheads, that sort of thing?
Yeah, actually, they did make arrowheads out of it, and scraping tools as well. for like hides and things like that, because on a practical level, it's a little bit similar to obsidian, which is also used for those kinds of things. So people used what they had, and it also, through the years, through many centuries later, became an ornamental stone used like from the 1600s on things like the handle of a cane, and it was used a lot in jewelry as well.
Jewelry. Okay, so that leads us to how you discovered Moldavite, because like you were like me, you had no idea. You never heard of Moldavite before. You were working with gold and diamonds, and you were making jewelry, and you were anticipating the arrival of Halley's Comet, and you thought, wow, this is a momentous celestial event. People are going to be very psyched about this. So you were going to make a piece of jewelry. Was it like a pendant? And you were going to have a gem as the actual comet, and then the tail of the comet you were going to fashion out of diamonds. So that was your plan. That all changed. You're on this road trip. Take it from there, and tell us about this amazing synchronicity.
Yeah, that was one. I was a jewelry designer in those days, but my spiritual interests had nothing to do with the way I made a living. And there was a little feeling of disconnect in that. But regardless of that, I was also wanting to do something unique with jewelry. And as I was daydreaming on a trip to Cape Cod to do some selling of my wares, it came to mind, just kind of dropped in. I saw an image of a gold comet with a real meteorite at the head of the comet and diamonds in the tail. And as you say, it immediately struck me, oh, Halley's Comet's going to be here in about a year and a half. I could make a commemorative comet, put a real meteorite in it, and it would really be new in the jewelry world. So, for me, the carrot was, oh, I'm going to make a lot of money if I do this. But little did I know how much more was going to unfold. But in any case, I was so excited by that idea that I drove another 40 miles right past my appointment that I had without even realizing it, because I was so captivated by my vision. And I ended up at the house of a friend, or near the house of a friend. So I went to see him instead of taking my appointment back. And he had done a project where he was selling astrology pendants through a credit card company's mailings. And he'd done really well. He'd sold 60,000 pendants. So I thought maybe this would be another one to fit that. So I told him my idea, and he said, it's a great idea, but you shouldn't use metal meteorites. They're ugly. You should use moldavites. My fateful question was, well, what's a moldavite? And, then he dug in his studio and found this magazine that he had. And the magazine was 28 years old. It was an old copy of the Lapidary Journal. And in that magazine was an article about moldavite, telling a lot of this history that I've just been sharing with you, and also talking about its use as a gem. But it also talked about the lore and spiritual stories about moldavite that the author, even in the 1950s, when he wrote this article, was aware of. So I thought, oh, gee, I got to see if this man's still alive. Maybe he can tell me more or help me find some, because it immediately struck me that this was the thing to use. So I called information. In those days, you could do that. I got a number, and I called him, and then, the phone rang, and then after a bit, this old man's voice answers the phone. And I say, hello, I'm Robert Simmons. I've just read your article about moldavite. There's a long pause, and he says, you just read my article. And he was astonished that 28 years later, somebody was calling him about it.
Right.
We talked for 4 hours. And during that call,
this is 1986, 85 or 86. He wrote the article in 1958. 1958.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, go ahead.
That's right. So it was a synchronicity, for me, it was a big synchronicity that this happened, and that my friend, I missed the appointment by chance. The idea fell into my head by chance. My friend remembered he had this magazine. The magazine was really telling a lot about moldavite that made it have a great story, as well as just being a gem from outer space, which was big enough. And then the man was there and talked to me on the phone for 4 hours about his intense interest in moldavite. He was a gemologist and had always been trying to get the gem world interested in moldavite without success. But while we were talking, I got the prickles on the back of my neck, and it felt like, oh, this is some kind of destiny moment for me. So he sent me my very first samples of moldavite, and things in my life took off quite rapidly from there.
He told you about some of the lore, the legend, the reported magical properties of moldavite. Things like it vanishing and reappearing and things like that.
That was something he mentioned, and it is something that happened to me too. So I'll talk about that for a minute, because it is really one of the surprising things about the stone. So yeah, I've got one of my very first favorite moldavites I had, and it did this thing of disappearing and reappearing a number of times during the time that I've had it. I've had this particular piece for now 36 years. But it would do things like I would leave it on my dresser, and I'd go to get it the next day to put it in my pocket, and it wouldn't be there. And then 2 weeks later, I found it in the potted plant in the living room. So inexplicable. There was one time in the shop when my wife and I opened a crystal shop during this first couple of years from when I discovered moldavite. I also discovered my wife. But during, if you just fast forward to when we had our shop, there was a day in which a customer came to the counter, and she was quite upset because she bought a big piece of moldavite, pretty expensive, and it had disappeared. She was sure she knew where she'd left it. So I said to her, well, don't worry too much, because mine goes on sabbatical from time to time, and it always comes back. So yours probably will too. In fact, mine's gone right now, I told her. Well, no sooner had I told her that than my wife was opening up our safe to get our gold jewelry out for the day in our shop. And she got out the cash pouch where we kept the change fund. And there was a lump in the pouch. And lo and behold, that was my missing moldavite in the cash pouch inside the safe. So it did a real Houdini somehow to get from where I left it at home into the cash pouch in our shop inside of a safe. And then the woman eventually, a couple months later, she got in touch with us and said hers came back as well. So many reports of this. Yeah. Even in the back of my book, there are half a dozen reports in the back of my book where we have letters from people who were moldavite enthusiasts, and they've told the same thing about this disappear, reappear phenomenon. So don't know why, but there's a certain trickster quality to moldavite.
Moldavite also said perhaps to have been the material from which the emerald tablets were carved. And well, tell me about the emerald tablets. This is Hermes Trismegistus. I guess the legendary father of alchemy. The tablets are supposed to contain the secret laws of the universe. But do we know for sure it was moldavite?
We don't know for sure that it was moldavite that the emerald tablet was carved from, but the legend of the emerald tablet is so similar in certain ways to the coming into being of moldavite. One of the things is when you read the emerald tablet, you find that and the lore around it, you find that the emerald tablet was said to have come to Earth from the stars. So it was a gift from the gods that actually descended to the Earth. It was green in color, and it was believed to be a stone. So there's no other, real stone in the physical world that is as much like that as moldavite is. And another thing in the emerald tablet that's very detailed, like moldavite's story, it says that the tablet itself fell to Earth, went back up to the stars, and came back to Earth again. So if you remember how moldavite was formed, the meteorite hit, the material shot up into the atmosphere, and it descended again. So, there is a similar pattern to the Emerald Tablet story.
Remarkable.
And another interesting thing, it goes with this, Richard, is that the Holy Grail stone is also very similar to Moldavite if you look at that legend. And that legend was written up in that article that George Bruce, the guy from 1958, had written. And the Emerald Tablet, not the Emerald Tablet, the stone of the Holy Grail was said to have been an emerald that fell from the sky. And it fell from the crown of Lucifer, the angel of the light, in the war between the angels. That's the Holy Grail story as told by Wolfram von Eschenbach, a German minnesinger of the 9th century. And that legend says that once you beheld the stone of the Grail, you could no longer deviate from your destiny. Your true spiritual path would unfold, whether you wanted it to or not. And that's interesting in another way, because Moldavite has a quality like that too.
Right, as we'll discover. We'll take a quick time out. Robert Simmons is here, and we're talking about this remarkable stone that is not a stone, Moldavite. Back with more in a moment. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. The Book of Moldavite, Starborn Stone of Transformation. Robert Simmons is with us, best-selling author of The Book of Stones and The Alchemy of Stones. We were talking about, you were mentioning the stone of the Holy Grail. Is that the same, is that interchangeable with the Philosopher's Stone? Is it believed to be the same?
That's a very good question and an interesting one. As you go into these different lores, you do find crossovers and similarities where both the Emerald Tablet, the Philosopher's Stone, and the Stone of the Holy Grail are spoken of in a very similar way. And a lot of us who are studying these things think that all 3 of the legends that I just mentioned are pointing to the same substance, or a substance that has the same qualities, and they're just coming at it from slightly different stories.
So you mentioned it's how you met your wife. Let's talk about the role of Moldavite in your marriage to Kathy.
Well, probably the single most salient quality that Moldavite seems to have, that its effect on people, when you get a piece of Moldavite, the thing that I've seen over and over again, and it's in the letters in the back of my book from people, is there's an acceleration of your spiritual path or your evolutionary growth. And what that tends to mean is whatever is needed for that acceleration is attracted to you, and whatever you need to jettison in order to further your path goes away, whether you're ready for it to go away or not. So in my case, I got a piece of Moldavite, a few pieces from Mr. Bruce, and immediately my life started just changing, and I didn't attribute it to the stone, but it just was happening. So quickly, the marriage I was in fell apart. And that was overdue. My habits of things like drinking alcohol fell away. I even started eating vegetarian, and this was all kind of spontaneous. Just felt like I wanted to do it. And in that same short time period of just a few months, I also met Kathy, my wife, who herself was a very spiritually oriented person and a healer. And she was the one who said to me, this Moldavite is a lot more important than your comet project, Robert. And it's going to touch people in a whole different way than you realize. And her first exposure to it, because since she was into crystals, I thought on my second date with her, I thought I'll try to impress her with this stone I've got. So I handed her one and said, you're into this crystal stuff. What do you get from this? And she closed her eyes, and she kept them closed for at least 5 minutes, maybe 10. I thought, has she gone to sleep? But she had, as she reported, an out-of-body experience where she went out into the universe and received information that Moldavite had a spiritual purpose for what she called grounding light, or bringing spiritual energies to the earth. And the people working with it would facilitate that. There's a kind of synergy between us and the stone that activates our own spiritual energies more, and also allows us to receive more that the earth can receive. So that was her report. At the day that I heard it, I wasn't really ready to believe it. I thought, I'm falling in love with a crazy person, but I don't care. But it's turned out that her insights were quite real.
More synchronicity. Let me see now where to begin. There's the story of you had again intended to use the Moldavite in this pendant depicting the Halley's Comet, and that kind of all fell apart on you, and you were practically destitute. But that opened another door.
Yeah, exactly. It was interesting because my friend introduced me to the credit card company people that he had his project with, and they looked at my idea and they said, "Oh, we like this idea. We want to do this project. Can you produce 60,000 pendants?" And I was a small-time jewelry designer. I didn't have that kind of resources, but I said yes, of course. And then I went about borrowing the money to acquire enough Moldavite so that I could do the project, because you can cut and facet Moldavite into gems. And that's what they wanted in the pendant, was a faceted one. So I had to seek out and find sources for Moldavite and borrow money from everybody in my family and my friends, and mortgage my house again. And all of that added up to enough to buy enough Moldavite to get 60,000 pendants made. And right around the time we had spent all that money, by this time, Kathy and I were together full time. Right around that time, she got a phone call from the credit card people, and they said, one of our vice presidents thinks Halley's Comet is just going to be a fad for a few weeks. So we're canceling this. So there I was with about 25 kilos of this gem from space that nobody had heard of, and no market, and all that money borrowed. And, so it was quite a challenge. We thought we would go ahead and try to do it ourselves. But we only ever sold 2 of those comet pendants. But it led to our opening a crystal shop and finding out that it was a sensation among the people that were sensitive to stone energies and interested in stones for meditation and healing. And that's where our business took off.
Right. And Kathy was totally nonplussed about the credit card cancellation, right? She said, "Don't worry, it's all going to work out. It's all going to work out."
Yeah, no kidding. That's one of her classic statements to me, because she's very trusting and aware of things how things are going to go in many cases. And I tended, especially in those days, to worry about everything. So she was always telling me when she could see it, this is going to work out for the good. And it always has. I'll just share with you one other thing that occurred. We started our project. We decided we would open a business. We were working to create some income in the Christmas season of that year. And we had all of my jewelry, all my diamonds and rubies and emerald jewelry on consignment at a shop in New Hampshire. And on Thanksgiving Day, that shop was robbed, and everything that I had was stolen except my moldavite, which I had not taken up there. So suddenly my whole way of making a living was gone, other than I had to be a moldavite seller. So it was interesting how these synchronicities pushed me, ready or not, into what was turning out to be my destined path.
Was it the day before where Kathy said during a meditation she heard a voice that said, "You must be emptied so that you can be filled"?
Yeah, I'm glad you remembered that. That's right. That meant that morning.
So
the morning of the day after Thanksgiving. Yeah, she said, her meditation, her guide said, "Be emptied so you may be filled." We didn't know what that meant till we got up there, and the door was ajar at the store, and the police were there, and they were taking a report about this break-in, and suddenly we knew what being emptied meant. Yeah, but she was right there saying, "This is all going to work for the good, Robert. You got to trust." And that was good for me to hear, but hard for me to accept.
Then Kathy, sort of on a flyer, heard about a big, was it kind of a new age or a total health expo that was happening in Boston, and just kind of on a flyer decided, okay, we'll take one of the booths that had suddenly just opened up mysteriously, was now available, this prime location, and it cost $1,500, which you didn't have.
Yeah, that's right. You've got that story exactly. Yeah, which shortly after that, when I was really like, how are we going to even live with all these debts and not any, because my only way of making a living was to sell my jewelry. So yeah, we managed to claw our way up to having a little more than $1,500 in the bank account. And she then heard this opportunity for a booth. She got the intuition that we should do it, and she wrote the check for it without even asking me or telling me about it. I was like, "You did what?" But she said, "No, this is going to be great for us." Well, again, synchronicities. We didn't have any inventory except moldavite. We didn't have any crystals. So how were we going to fill up a great big booth? But once again, things fell into place. There was a gentleman on Cape Cod who had a big shop and was closed in the winter. So he lent us his whole inventory to fill up our booth with crystals and other stones. And we did have a section of moldavite. And that was moldavite's introduction to that metaphysical community. And it was, we sold a load of it, and it was amazing to me. And at that time, Kathy then said to everybody, "Oh yes, we're going to open a shop in April." We didn't have a shop location or anything else yet, but she felt like she knew, and it turned out she did.
Another time out, Robert Simmons, this amazing journey, Moldavite, the book of Moldavite, Starborn, Stone of Transformation. Stay with us. November reminds us to be thankful and focused on boosting our radiant health before winter. And I use a potent remedy that's improved the quality of my life and deepened my sleep as well. I take C60 Evo olive oil every morning, and I have a lot more energy and mental focus all day long. My workouts are easier, and I have a lot more endurance. If you're into competitive sports, this is a game changer. Health is our greatest wealth, and Pura C60 ESS60 really works. ESS60 is a breakthrough technology delivering the carbon-60 miracle molecule for humans and pets. Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there. Robert Simmons is with us. The Book of Moldavite. There it is. Beautiful. Beautiful book. Incidentally, you know, I'd heard this once about crop circles, and it also turns out to be true, apparently, about Moldavite, and that is people talk about going into crop circles and receiving some sort of healing energy. Patty Greer, who's made many award-winning films on crop circles, they call her the crop circle gal. I think she told me this, that even a photograph of a crop circle, you can get the same kind of effect just looking at the photograph, never mind stepping inside the circle. It's the same thing is true with Moldavite, correct?
That is true with Moldavite. And I mean, it's even true with other crystals and gemstones as well. It's a very interesting thing to note that happens. And we've had a lot of reports from people who look at one of my books, and I always try to put a lot of good photos in my books for this reason. They'll look at the Moldavite photo in the book, and they'll start getting the symptoms that Moldavite engenders without knowing what's going on. And some of those symptoms include feeling heat or an intense energy running through your body, sometimes even like a kundalini energy going up the spine. But most commonly, it's heat and sometimes lightheadedness, depending on how you resonate with Moldavite. But that has happened many times from the pictures. And it actually points to something about all of these kinds of energies that I find really good to know, which is that they're non-local, meaning that you can tap into the currents or the energies of different stones through looking at a picture, or even through picturing them in your mind, if you're good at that. Which says, you know, if you believe that stones have benefits, which I do, then those benefits are really available in the field and not just having to have one in your pocket.
What other benefits or effects are people finding from Moldavite? We kind of alluded to health. I mean, do people report, I don't know, financial benefits? What else?
Well, there are, and you know, I use the common denominator of whatever needs to come to you for your highest good, for your evolution and growth, is kind of how those things get sorted. But the actual specifics can be all kinds of things, including physical healing. I definitely have had physical healing, especially during that first few months that I had Moldavite. I became a lot healthier, not just through choices I made, but just my vitality was stronger. And that you'll see again if people read the letters in the back of the book. Lots of people talk about their healing experiences with Moldavite. And one thing I've seen, a friend of mine was just here visiting us in New Zealand, and she tried on one of my Moldavite necklaces and wore it for a few days. And when it was time for her to go home, we were taking her to the airport, and she was taking the necklace off, and she said, "Oh, my energy just dropped." And she put it back on, and it's like, it's back. And she tried that about 5 times on the way to the airport. She couldn't believe it because it was so noticeable to her that her energy level, meaning her feeling of vitality and liveliness and awakeness, was markedly higher when she had that on. And when she take it off, it would diminish. So that's just a recent example of something that I've had people tell me in many times. So that's one of the effects. Another one I'll mention is spiritual protection. All of this takes place in the context of people accepting the idea that stone energies are real, which I do, and I didn't originally until it happened to me, that I felt it. And Moldavite was the first one I felt. But within that context, that protection feeling is something, not just the feeling of protection, but the actual change in your vibration so that parasitic energies can't get hold of you. That's one of the qualities that people have told me that Moldavites had for them, and that I feel too. So that's another one. And then the third one I'd point to, it's a big one, is grounding light in the earth, which I mentioned before.
Yes. Tell me more about that. How does that work?
I believe that the shift in your own vibration, we have a subtle body as well as a physical body. The subtle body you could call our energy body, and that is related to our aura. That's sort of a visual phenomenon of our energy body. But we can feel our energy body, and that is what gets affected by Moldavite. It's a resonance. Moldavite's vibration is very high and very intense. Maybe even that comes from the intense event that gave birth to Moldavite, that big meteoric crash. And also that crash was a joining of heaven and earth, literally, in a substance. The meteorite from the space and the earth itself got fused together in this liquid glass that fell in a shower. So there's the joining of heaven and earth is physically a fact in Moldavites as a substance. The grounding of spiritual light for earth is another joining of heaven and earth. And, from my perspective, reality is not only physical, it also operates on the spiritual level symbolically. So that, and that's in the Emerald Tablet, that as above, so below. If you see a pattern on one level of reality, it is in resonance with patterns on other levels. So there's this grounding of light because Moldavite actually brought heaven to earth literally when it landed. Its energy is high vibration. When you're at a high vibration, you're able to resonate with higher energies than you normally would. And that comes down through you. And if you're willing and want it to, it'll go right into the earth, which is good for the earth, ultimately. That's the reason for wanting to do that.
And of course, that is the name of your company, Heaven and Earth, right? And when you opened that store, that name just came to you again during a meditation while you had Moldavite in close proximity?
Oh, yeah. That was a meditation. I was just sitting holding a Moldavite. I didn't feel crystal energies. I didn't even think I believed they were real, but yet we were opening a crystal shop, my wife and I. And so she said, you have to meditate every day with your Moldavite, Robert, until you wake up to this. So one day I was meditating and I still didn't feel energy, but a voice came in to my head telling me the name of the store is Heaven and Earth. And we had been wondering what to name it. And suddenly that just felt right, for the reasons I've already said, like Moldavite, which was our signature thing, was this blend of heaven and earth. So, and it also is true that our philosophy is that what we aspire to is that heaven and earth become one. That the higher spiritual world and the earth itself merge together. So yeah, that came in the conversation.
So you're going to open this store, Heaven and Earth, and sell your Moldavite creations and jewelry. And then, the question is, well, how are people going to find you? All of a sudden, a phone call from a producer of a TV show out of Washington, D.C. called Night Watch And
Yeah.
talk to me about that.
Yeah, and that reminds me that I should have mentioned an increase in synchronicities in your life is one of the Moldavite phenomenon. So these stories I keep telling are my own synchronicities, and they all were for the benefit of this destiny that was unfolding. So as you say, one day in our little shop in Gloucester, Massachusetts, the phone rings, and it's a TV producer for the Night Watch program in Washington, D.C., and they offered to fly Kathy and me to Washington to get on the program one night and talk about Moldavite and crystals. Of course, we said yes. And, we got on, and there were a couple other sort of New Age authors on there with us. But we got to introduce Moldavite. And there's a bit of a funny story that goes with this, if you don't mind me sharing that too. So the host would not give our address or phone number out on the air, but he said, it's heaven and earth in Gloucester, Massachusetts, and you can look it up if you want to contact them to get a Moldavite. Well, apparently a lot of people did, because a couple months later, a lady came into our shop and she said, I saw that program and I called up information. Again, this was live operators in those days, to get your phone number. And the operator at 3 a.m, because this was a late program, the operator at 3 a.m. said to me, why do you keep calling and asking for the same phone number over and over again? This poor woman who was doing the info calls in the middle of the night was getting hundreds of calls asking for the same phone number, one after the other. And she had no idea why. So, I thought that was kind of funny, and would love to have been able to find out who she was to explain it to her. But that was that brought a lot of customers to us early on.
Yeah, including Lawrence Fishburne, the famous actor.
That's right. Yeah, as we went through beginning our store, and then we decided to write a book about Moldavite, the first book about Moldavite, which came out in 1988, much smaller book than my new one. We were at the Tucson Gem and Mineral Show, which is the biggest crystal and stone show in the world. And we had a booth, and in walks Lawrence Fishburne. He wants to buy Moldavites. And he being a movie star, he chose all the biggest, best ones. And, I didn't know who he was at that point. I said, what do you do for a living? He said, I'm an actor. And I said, oh, what are you in? And he mentioned a couple of movies. It wasn't the Matrix days yet.
No.
So I think he was in one called, maybe it was called Just Cause or something, but it was quite a good movie. And I had seen that. So anyway, we asked him for his autograph. He said, no, I don't do autographs, but I do hugs. So we all got a hug from him. And then he bought my book, my first Moldavite book, and asked for our autograph. So that was a feather in our cap that day.
Yes, and then of course he walks out with some Moldavite, and a couple of years later he's in the Matrix.
Exactly.
He was established as an actor. I think he was 13, 14 when he was in Apocalypse Now or something like that. But then he does, then he goes like way over the top with his success with the Matrix. Could have been the Moldavite, Robert. Could have been the Moldavite.
Well, it certainly was for his highest good and his evolution. I won't take credit for Moldavite, but it's an interesting thing to wonder about.
I have to ask you about this. We just have a couple minutes left, but tell me about two other visitors into your shop, Men in Black.
Yeah, that's one of the more weird experiences we had in the early years. We had a crystal shop our very first year, the last Saturday before Christmas. We were open late, and no one was in the shop, and the phone rang, and it was somebody that said to my wife, I want you to talk me out of committing suicide. Now, how weird is that? But she took it seriously, and she wanted to help this person. So she took the phone in the back room, and I was alone in the front. And then in came these two men who were dressed completely in black suits, black hats, just like in the Men in Black movie, except not comedic at all. They were really sinister, and they acted like they weren't quite human. As soon as I saw them, I got scared, and my protection, I put protection around myself, or at least envisioned it. And then I followed them all around the store very closely, because they were walking around acting just crude and rude and weird. Like they would pick up a beautiful crystal and say, "Whoa, is that ugly?" And then slam it down. And then they'd pick up something like a piece of obsidian and they'd say, "No, that's beautiful." And I mean, they had these weird voices like I'm parodying right now. And they just jerked around and act like kind of like, you know, I don't know what, like an imitation of a human being. And they finally got around to the part of the store where the Moldavite was. And I was feeling really protective of that. And they said, one of them said, "What's that?" And I suddenly heard a voice come through me that said, "That's Moldavite. You wouldn't be interested." And there was power in that. I don't know where it came from, but the older of these two creatures said, "Oh, okay." And they both left. And as soon as, right after the door shut, Kathy came out and said, "The woman on the phone just suddenly got in a better mood and said, 'Okay, thank you, bye.'" So I don't know that those two things were connected, but it felt like Kathy was pulled out of the room on purpose. And so that this, whatever others, these two guys could come in and do whatever they were trying to do. But I had been reading about Men in Black in those days, because there were books and such about it. And to see them in the shop was extremely weird. But I got to say that they didn't seem able to face up to the Moldavite, and they never came back.
Heaven and Earth, is that still in Gloucester, Massachusetts at the store?
No, we moved to Vermont in 1991, and we have now what's a mail order business through there. Its website, if I can say it, is heavenandearthjewelry.com. And it's all spelled out as one word. So that's going on there, and it's gotten to be pretty big worldwide mail order business. We have customers all over the world. And I do now have a retail shop here in New Zealand where I live too, by the same name, also Heaven and Earth. And I give classes. I teach about not just Moldavite, but all the crystals and how to work with them spiritually and meditate and do healing with them. So that's what it's evolved into over these 35 years.
Well, right after we say goodbye, I'm going to get on the website and I'm going to get me some Moldavite. This is absolutely enchanting and remarkable. Robert, great to meet you. Thank you so much for this.
Well, thanks for having me on. It was really fun to talk with you and tell my stories, and I got 100 more.
The Book of Moldavite, Starborn, Stone of Transformation.
Richard Syrett's Strange Planet drops every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
Hi there. If you want to watch the rest of these episodes, please head over to my Rumble channel, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. You can watch complete episodes there. New, complete, unedited episodes drop every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Again, the Rumble channel is Richard Syrett's Strange Planet. In the meantime, I want to thank you for supporting this YouTube channel all of these years. However, the problem is I never know when I'm going to run afoul of the censors at YouTube. I never know when I'm going to end up in YouTube jail. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. And in fact, 2 more strikes and this YouTube channel will be taken down altogether. So help me fight big tech censorship, enjoy the complete unedited episodes, and join the rest of the Strange Planet community over on Rumble. Again, Richard Syrett's Strange Planet on rumble.com. See you over there.